The city of Venice is an engineering marvel of the world. The city is home to nearly 300,000 people and is one of the most visited places in Europe. Today Venice is a tourist city. It has become world famous for its architecture and its famous waterways. The city consists of 118 islands and 150 canals. It hosts more than 400 bridges, and in this city you can move only on foot or by boat. Venice is truly one of the most unique cities in the world. But why exactly was this floating city actually built and how? Long ago, the buildings were constructed using long wooden piles, about 150 centimeters long, that were driven deep into the ground. These piles were driven deep into the ground and reached over the weak mud and soil to a part of the ground that was made of hard clay that could support the weight of the buildings that stood on the piles. The piles were also driven into the water, which normally would have been a disaster since wood normally rots. The wood used to build the piles was very resistant to water, but even then, the wood would have eventually rotted. However, several things happened that kept the wood intact for over 500 years. First, wood only rots when both air and water are present. So in the low oxygen environment of the water beneath the buildings, the wood was protected until the second point occurred. The water of the lagoon carried an extreme amount of silt and soil, and the wood was washed around by this sediment for years. The wood absorbed the sediment and fossilized into stone at a rapid pace. The wood used to build the piles, such as oak or larch, was also very resistant to water. The way the piles were set is also important. The piles were set as close together as the ground would allow. Stones and rocks were thrown between the piles, which prevented the mud from rising up at the subsequent piles. Marble is one of the candidates used for the masonry because it is impermeable to water. Why does Venice flood so often? There are some of the factors that are responsible for the frequent flooding in Venice. The main reason is the rising sea level and the sinking of the ground level. The sea level around Venice has been rising steadily for decades, a phenomenon that has been accelerated by climate change. It is estimated that the average sea level today is more than 20 centimeters higher than it was a century ago. At the same time, the city's soil is gradually sinking, at an estimated rate of 1 millimeter per year. This is due to the soft and fluctuating geological terrain on which the city is built. This was exacerbated over the decades by local industries around Venice pumping groundwater from the aquifer beneath the lagoon until they were banned from doing so in the 1970s. The tidal factor also plays a role. Venice, which sits on a cluster of small islands in a saltwater lagoon off the northeastern coast of Italy, has always lived with the tides, which usually result in sea level fluctuations of about 50 centimeters, but can sometimes be more extreme. The other reason is the weather. Sirocco winds from the southeast can drive water into the lagoon, much of which consists of marshes and mud. When high tides coincide with strong winds and an area of low pressure, the effects can be unpredictable and extreme. This was the case on November 12, 2019, when winds of over 100 kilometers per hour swept across the city and the tide in the lagoon reached 187 centimeters, the highest level since the record of 1966, 194 centimeters. The Institute of Marine Sciences in Venice said that with the effects of climate change, rising sea levels and more frequent storms at sea, such extreme events will become more frequent.